Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another new episode of Geeks from the Multiverse. We are doing a deep dive into my book. That's right, my book, The Amulet Keepers, Power of the Gods. We are going to go through how I created the idea for the book, the summary, the plot, the characters, everything. Like I said, we're doing a deep dive, so let's get right into it.
We're geeks from the multiverse. We've come to unite all geeks. Now it's time to get geeky and dive right in, 'cause we're geeks from the multiverse.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Geeks from the Multiverse. I am one of your hosts, Matt, a.k.a. Grumpy Beard.
And yo, what's up? Yes, it's Johnny Boy over here. And yes, aka Captain Mustache. And yes, so we're going to be talking about Matt's book over here, The Amulet Keepers, Book 1, The Power of the Gods. And now, mind you, he didn't use his real name. He used Matthew Ryan.
Well, I mean, technically, it is my it is my real name.
No, I'm joking, but he didn't use his last name.
I just didn't use my last name.
He used a pseudonym. That's what he did.
Yeah, it's kind of like my pen name.
little pen name.
I just didn't want to use like my last name. Not that I am ashamed of my last name, but I kind of wanted to use the pen name because I figured, Matthew Ryan would have been kind of better and, just more suitable.
So my favorite part, granted, so yes, I'm going to say it. I have not technically read Matt's book. I mean, originally I know, because originally I did say that I was going to help him, read the book and do all that. And I chose, all right, let me rephrase this. I didn't read it. He published the book anyways. I even told my wife, Allie, to read the book, and I even said, here's a copy, and she didn't want to read it either. And I said, okay, fine, whatever. So he published it, and it's fine. I mean, I told him that I would do it because I said, I wanted to get more familiar with it. Because, when he used to talk about it, I'm not going to lie, Matt, I'm going to be completely, utterly honest with you. When you would talk about the book at the time, there were times that I was zoning the fuck out, man. I'm not going to lie. It was because it's not that I didn't care. Okay. I want you to know this. I do care as a friend. It's not that. I think for me, it was more like I needed to see this physically in my hands, right? Because I needed to understand that piece. And you were talking about plots and all this shit. Because you were just like going deep dive. I had a deep dive well before this book came out. Okay. And it was hard for me to keep up. So it was hard for me to know where you were at certain points. So this is why now, yes, I can now finally understand, hopefully when reading this book. And so, yes, little fun fact real quick before we mention some other things. Yes, you can also, on Apple Audio, you can download, if you want to, a audiobook version of this book that we're going to be talking about as well. So you could actually listen to it and, if you wanted to read it too and follow along. Just a little fun fact.
Yeah, it is available on Apple Books. I don't know the full quality of the entire book because it was done by, an Apple book. Basically they have I think it is AI, but it's not like they just ran it through an AI and it was done in 48 hours. It took a month for them to process it. And I've only listened to maybe the first, I think it was like the first 5 minutes of it or so. It was like 5 minutes and some odd seconds, but what I heard from it was pretty good. It sounded natural. It was like a natural sounding guy. It wasn't like, this is it wasn't like, the typical AI robotic, voice.
No, I get what you're saying, but
So
yes.
It sounded natural, but there is between some of the characters, like one of them has a real Southern drawl, with the slang. Mm-hmm. One of them has almost kind of like a street gang, rapper kind of a slang. So, there are different slangs in the, throughout the book. So I'm very wondrous of how it was read.
Right.
Aloud, how that reader read aloud those like various things.
Maybe what I'll do, shortly. Maybe I'll just suck it up and buy the book audio wise, and then what I'll do is I'll share it with you, and then I'll let you know how that goes. But real quick, so yes, we got to do our little fist bump here. Just want to throw that out there. So yes, I will take the lead on this, Matt. So yes, we got to follow, man. We got to interact. We got to subscribe, and we got to tell your friends, man. That's what you got to do with this fist bump. That's why. So yes, I got to keep doing it because Matt's like, I'm proud of you. Now keep it up and start doing it. Yeah. So now I'm telling you, yes, that's what you guys got to do, man. We're going to try to, spread the word, do all this stuff. So hopefully spreading the word and, maybe picking up the book. Because, granted, I have a free copy because, Matt loves me, and that's why. No, I'm joking. It's
that is one of my, one of the author copies. Yes, but
yes, I do have the one of the author copies. No, but the other thing is that, of course, in one of my favorite pages of this book so far, is the I want to dedicate page, the dedication page. So it says, I want to dedicate this book to my family, my friends, and all the geeks out there within the multiverse. And then, so I'm not trying to pick on Danielle here, okay. But I thought it was funny because right after that, you had a dedication strictly for me, not even to Danielle, not even to your wife. It says a special shout out to John and the Geeks from the Multiverse podcast. Without you and the podcast, this book would never have been possible. And I was just like, my buddy, he did a little special shout out for me. And I was like, I didn't do shit, but okay.
Well, I mentioned my family first, but...
Oh, I know. I was joking, but it was just like right at the end there. I was like, that's right. I said, okay. And then, of course, Matt did his lovely... I guess you want to call it a signature. I don't really know. I mean, I guess if you want to do a bunch of M's and then a weird-looking G and...
That's my signature.
I understand. It's just, yeah. I mean, shit.
Don't be judgy.
I am a little judgy of your signature. You know what? It is what it is. But anyways, no. So getting back into the book.
So yeah, I mean, if, a little plug, but for a while when I first published the book, and I did self-publish, like it's not, I didn't go through a publisher. I'm not that big.
Listen, we're not talking like, big time publishing companies.
But yeah, I did self-publish, but initially I had a problem with Amazon. Because they did not list my book correctly.
Right.
So people ordered it, through Amazon, and I think it was like, 2-3 months where they were, people were, mainly family were messaging me going, hey, I still haven't received my book. And like, I'm messaging Amazon and they're like, no, you have to talk to whoever your distributor is. And like, I'm messaging Drafted Digital, who is the company that I published through. And like they're reaching out to Amazon and I'm reaching out to Amazon and like they're like, well, we don't see a problem. And I'm like, well, there's a fucking problem here because
so where's the book?
Because my Amazon only listed through third party. Like Amazon never listed my book. It was only like third party, which basically means like if you have something for sale on Amazon and it's not listed on Amazon, basically like I could go in there and purchase your item. Mm-hmm. And then I could list it for sale. So if you were selling something on Amazon, say $9.99, mm-hmm. I could then purchase said item and sell it for $23.99 as a third-party seller.
Yep.
And basically that's what was happening. So my book was on sale for a certain price, and then all these third-party sellers were basically selling my book for different prices. So... long story short, basically like Amazon had finally fixed my listing. So it is now listed. It's been listed for a while correctly. So, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, it's listed, pretty much anywhere you can pretty much buy books online. It's listed there.
And yeah, so I know that, I know we talked about it a long time ago. We've talked it on, it's been a while. I don't remember what episode, but we did talk about how Matt, was publishing a book and things of that nature. I mean, granted, I was a little surprised. It's kind of like, him going into like music now, and now he's doing an author thing. And I'm like, shit, are you going to, so we just did from books to music. Are we missing anything? Because at one point I would be like, are you going to try something else? Are you just going to be like, hey, I'm just going to go down here now? Am I going to?
Maybe, who knows?
You're just going to start doing everything now? That's what it is? You're just going to say, fuck it?
Sure. I mean, I'm Edit Fest is happening right now, so.
Well, yeah, I guess he's producing.
I'm doing, I'm doing that competition. This is the third year in a row. So,
Well, it's the third time talking about it since we
I'm
started.
doing that. But yeah, no, the book thing was kind of. I mean, I've always been kind of interested in writing. I've written a few things, just here and there. Never really published anything.
No, I know this was the first time.
Yeah, it was the first time, and I surprisingly, I would have thought the first book I would have ever written, if I wrote a book, would have been something horror.
Oh yeah,
Right?
I mean, well, yeah, with everything you related, yeah, that.
I mean, I have an affinity for all things like scary, gory, spooky. So I'm quite surprised that like the first thing was superheroes and Greek mythology, like.
Because I'll admit, I mean, don't get me wrong, those two right there are one of my favorites. Like putting those together, that's why I'm saying yes. That's why I said I got to read the book because I know that's like kind of my jive too. Because I like that style. But no, and I mean, I agree with you, man. I mean, because ever since I've known you, listen, I know I mentioned this story multiple times, and I know our listeners or whatever, whoever, how many there ever be, they may or may not know. But like, yeah, when I first met Matt, it was like. We're just talking to I was literally talking to a guy.
Working third shift and watching Chucky.
Oh, don't even get me started. That was a different story. That was a terrible night. No, the first time I remember. So the thing is like when you first meet Matt, right? It's very quiet. He's just kind of like in the corner, just kind of doing his thing, and you have to be the one to be like, hey, how you doing, man? Let me just pull you right in for a second, and then you have to like start talking about different things, right? You start. Building the relationship here. But no, like for me, it was like, I mean, I kind of knew. I was like, hey man, do you like this? You're like, oh yeah, I like video games. Oh yeah. Okay. So, we kind of got connected pretty easily and it was easy. And then of course I like to always mention the Guardian Stalker Angel as my nickname was, because somebody was like, did you really follow him home? And I said, I did. Because I really didn't live that far away. And I really was joking. And everyone's like, you stalked him? And I said, I didn't really stalk him. It wasn't that hard to follow him. I mean, he didn't really do a good job of driving the way he did. And I think at one point, didn't you say you noticed me or noticed?
I don't think I noticed you, but I mean, it's not like a normal thing where you follow a coworker home.
No, I never said it was easy. Look, and I know I always tell the jokes and everyone's like, oh, Willie, that's freaking creepy. And I said, you know what? It's whatever. I mean, it was also in the past. I haven't done that in a long time. I think I may have joked a couple times and I've gone like to his house and I've just sat there and I'm like, hey man, why don't you look outside for a second? And then you're like, the fuck are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, I was in the neighborhood. I figured I'd stop by. But no, anyways, no. I mean, of course our friendship has grown and, we've done other things together, and now here we are doing a podcast that we've talked about for quite some time. I mean, shit, man. I mean, we're going on almost 10 years, right? Knowing each other.
Yeah, I mean,
has it really been that long?
2016, I think.
Was it? I thought it was 2015.
No, I think I started November of
2016. Okay, sorry. I guess next year. I guess we'll throw the 10-year anniversary.
Year, yeah.
I guess we'll have to do a 10-year party together. We'll have to celebrate.
Yeah, but I mean, I've always been. I mean, I've worked for a haunted attraction. I used to say haunted house, but I now say haunted attraction.
Yeah, that's probably
because a haunted house is like, you work in a haunted house. Like, what are you, a ghost? No, I'm not like a ghost, but I work for I work for a haunted attraction in October, and I've worked there over 15 years.
Right. As well just own the place at that point.
But like, I do like, all things horror, and, you pretty much ask me anything about horror movies and I've probably watched most of them. Not because they're good, probably because they're bad.
That's why one of our favorite episodes together was the whole B-rated, stupid movies.
And I absolutely love them, but I love the horror genre, but for me, I do love superheroes. I do love Greek mythology. And I think for me, one, I was watching the Percy Jackson TV show for one, and the whole Greek mythology thing was interesting at the time. And two, with Marvel and the MCU and, you have DC and you have, certain things. For me, like, I wanted to create something that was really unique and something that was completely different and that focused, on their abilities and who they were as people. But I didn't want to go in the same direction like that Marvel or DC has gone where, they're somehow like they're mutants or they're bitten by some bug or, they're in like some kind of a freak accident. Like, like the Flash was like, he knocks over chemicals and then gets struck by lightning. Like, that's kind of like a 1 in a million. You know what I mean? Like it's a 1 in a million shot that you get splashed with just the right, chemicals, and you get struck by lightning in that one moment where you're working in some kind of like that place, or you're bitten by like a radioactive spider, or some sort of weird thing. And yes, there are characters in Marvel and DC that have powers derived from gods, but I think what makes my story, a little bit unique is that there's nothing quite to the extent that I have in my story.
Well,
because you have Thor, right?
Yep.
But Thor himself is a god.
Right.
Even though he does get banished to Earth in the comics. He gets banished to Earth.
Yep.
And then he takes kind of a mortal
approach
to it.
Like something. I can't remember his name. But yeah.
And, when he takes the hammer, then he becomes Thor. And there's a few other characters, but it's nothing quite to the extent that's in this book.
No, I mean, so when you kind of going back a little bit, but when you first mentioned this book to me, I mean, at first I'm not going to lie, I was a little skeptical because I was like, shh, okay. All right. You want to make a book? All right, go for it. I mean, what's going to hurt? I mean, you're going to make a book, we'll just see how this goes, whatever. Because like I said, I'm not saying, because when I first met you and you wanting to write this book, I mean, if I chose, or let me put it this way, if you said to me you were going to make a book when we were still working at Farnham, I'm not saying I would have laughed, but I probably would have chuckled a little bit because I'd be like, okay, well, knowing your demeanor at that time, you would have never had the confidence, I think, in that moment to do that.
Probably not.
I think it would have taken you a while, but you're able to do that. I think now, right, because there was a difference because, when you said, hey, do you want to do this podcast? Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know what it takes to do a podcast, but sure, let's just do it, right? So, here we are doing it now. This is our third year doing it, which is freaking insane, in my opinion, at the end of the day. But now taking a look at how you're doing this, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I can see that now because now you're focusing on this and you're taking the time to, write something. And so, when we're talking about this, Matt just didn't just free willy-nilly. It took we talked about this for months before because he was writing this and he was talking to me about it and then kind of getting ideas and we're like, okay, so, are you doing this? Are you going to do that? So kind of figuring it out, the game plan for all this, because hell, Matt and I mean, at one point we were joking around that we should make fucking kids' children's books because of all the dumb shit that we've been seeing about, what was it? Like Susie's, I can't remember the exact book, but it was that Susie's touch my, it was the pun book or something like that. You and I were talking about it a long time ago. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was it was stupid shit. It was just funny, but it really wasn't a kid's book.
Well, it's like adult.
Yeah, it was adult children's book. But we were just kind of joking around about it. But
which would still be fun to do. But
yes, that's going to be a later date. But yeah,
you just have to find somebody who can illustrate.
Yeah,
which is clearly not me.
And that definitely won't be me. I am not that. So
yeah, I mean, it's just the initial inspiration. Like I said before, was Percy Jackson. And it was really seeing the show, and I've watched the movies, but I think watching the show, and really watching the TV series, which is, to me, I think it's much different from the movies. I mean, it is a lot the same story, but it's done differently. But it really got me thinking about Greek mythology as a whole. And I was really like, what if the Greek gods, before leaving Olympus, left behind some kind of an artifact on Earth that was imbued with like even a little bit of their power. That's what kind of got me thinking and got me kind of stirred. Like, what would it look like? And so like it kind of like morphed into more ideas. And from there, like I built these timelines, which I showed you. I had these timelines, I had these notes, I had Google spreadsheets, and the timeline was getting way too long, which I had broken into 3 different timelines. Not timelines, but I broke that timeline into 3 sections. And my initial plan was for 3 different parts of the story, which that first part of the story is this first book. But that's kind of like where I started. Like I was watching the show and I was just like, in Greek mythology, the Greek gods left Olympus and they were just, hey, we're out. And, they left humanity to do whatever they were doing.
Right.
And that was it. But it was like, well, what if they didn't just do that? Like, what if they left behind artifacts that were
powers
had a little bit of their powers left behind in them? What would that even look like?
Right. And so when you mentioned that idea to me, I mean, I honestly was like, okay, you know what? I kind of like that idea where, when you look at superheroes or you look at, I would even say, but like portrayals of like, Greek mythology in general, they don't normally do that. Like they don't have literally artifacts like a lightning bolt, representing like Zeus, showing you like, hey, this is like an amulet of Zeus and like this is the power of what he can do. There's not many movies that I can think of off the top of my head that kind of had that similar jive or that similar version of that, right? Because like when you look at the Flash, when you look at the symbol of Flash versus like the symbol of, let's say, Zeus, right? And then I'd even look at Shazam, right? I'm going to throw Shazam in there, even though technically it's, Captain Marvel, but it's not, it's weird because again, it's all copyright shit. But anyways, when you start to look at all those 3 and you look at the symbolism of a lightning bolt, you know how it's different from each one of those 3, right? And so like, looking at, especially in this book, or just, okay, let me rephrase it because again, I haven't read it yet, but just you explaining it to me and like showing me like the different designs and different things. There's major differences. There's different things that I can say, okay, this is, clearly a unique perspective, for what it is and not really something that, most people would say, okay, well, yeah, that's similar to that. Well, it's technically not because I don't know of any movies or things like that, or even books for that matter, that go off of an amulet or some kind of artifact related to a god, to represent of what, powers they might have or something like that.
To me, there isn't really ones that I can like think. I mean, there are similarities to some things. Like when you're watching like Percy Jackson, like there are certain things like that they got from the gods. Like, you have
like the trident. Sure. You could throw that out there.
The shoes or the trident that had certain things that they could do, but it was very specific. Like the shoes could help you fly, but not like, like you could fly like Superman. Like it was a very short distance.
So you're talking more like Hermes, like in the sense of that. Okay, yeah.
But it only allowed you to do like a certain distance. Like, it wasn't like, you put the shoes on and you could fly like Superman indefinitely.
Right.
If we're talking Hermes and you had the amulet of Hermes, and it allowed you to fly, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Like you would have that amulet. It would give you that power to fly.
Right. Or in this case,
I'm not saying that this one's even in the book because
no. But I was just also going to say like even Poseidon. So let's say having like a trident, symbol on an amulet or something like that, being able to control the ocean or,
or breathe underwater or
controlling animals or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever that power would look like. That's what we're talking about. So the amulet's like, the amulet of Zeus would, allow you to control energy or manipulate energy or to be energy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like some of these things, like what would that look like? What would it be? And that's kind of where I was thinking, like, and I really had to kind of dig into, okay, like what does Greek mythology really look like?
Well, I mean, because the problem is,
I don't want to be just talking about my ass.
No, but I'm gonna be for real for a second. I mean, Greek mythology has so many different versions of itself that you could look back at, some of the stories like the Odyssey and so forth. Like you can go back even further, but like there's no like definitive version because honestly, at the end of the day, when you look at the, I would say like the storytellers or the authors of some of these books, right? Of those things. That's just one version. There's probably multiple versions of the same story, but there's also different twists to said story. So, looking at, let's say your book here, right? You wanted it to basically say, hey, you know what? I want to make this an original of something. I want to be different. But of course, use the same aspects. Maybe you can have a little bit of Percy Jackson, whatever.
Well, and that's what's great about being mythology. Where
you can have your own interpretation.
It's a myth.
Right, exactly. It's an interpretation.
Not fact. It's a myth.
Right. It's an interpretation of what could be real versus whatever. Right, and so like that was the beauty of this. What you've been telling me so far with this, and that this is also. I'm going to say this before we go kind of dive in a little further. And this is where I joked with Matt here. I said, listen. I said, if this book ever, especially like if you, let's say you make multiple of the books or whatever, and let's say, some type of studio was like, hey, we really like this idea. We really want to do a book on, or like a TV show or like a movie. I literally told Matt, and I said, okay, what would that happen? And he's like, honestly, I said, I would love it. I said, but at the same time, they better not fuck it up because if they do, then I'm going to be like, well, you're not doing this fucking movie. You're not doing this fucking TV show. You're going to do it the right way, or you're not getting the shit from me.
Yeah. I would want full control over creative. You know what I mean? Because
I fully agree. I totally agree.
I would not just be handing this over to anybody so that they could just be like, nope, we're doing it this way and this is it. Like, I am not doing this so that they can do what they did to Star Wars for George Lucas. Like, no. If you're going to do this, this is the way it's going to go. If you don't like it, I will take this idea and I will bring it back home with me.
You can shove it up your ass because you ain't good for me.
We're going to be taking our millions back. Well, fine.
That's fine.
You really want to call it that, then fine.
But if then again, hopefully maybe you find another studio or somebody like that actually follows that. But, I mean, again, I know
maybe,
this is long stretch here. But no,
it's a really long stretch.
I know. But honestly, I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. And this is the reality of it, right? So Matt and I, we always talk about, like, stick to the blueprint, stick to the source material. And, talking about a book, maybe going into a movie one day. Could I see this? Absolutely. I mean, if the right person, the right whoever, right, can do this, hell, I'd be like, here's some top directors I'd give it to. James Cameron, Steven Spielberg. I'm just going to name a few. They're like, oh, you want the most... Hell, fucking yes, I do. I want to make sure that this goddamn movie is the right fucking film, man. Because look at their damn resumes. When you look at their damn movies, tell me, James Cameron alone right there. Top 5 or top 10 at least of all time greatest films or at least grossing films of all time? He's up there.
I would 100% give this to the Russo brothers.
You would give this to the Russo brothers?
I would 100%.
Why just them? Why not anyone else?
I mean, if there were other offers, I would entertain them. But
hold on. Time out. Before you go on, if you're telling me this, James Cameron and the Russo brothers said, hey, we're going to do this for you. Which one are you going to choose? If you had to decide between those two.
Well, it depends.
What's there to depend?
It depends on...
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
It depends on what they want to do with the story. So, I mean, I'd have to hear what their pitch is.
Well, it depends on what the Russo brothers are going to do for you.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't deal with hypotheticals. So I really have to hear what their pitch is. But I mean, I've seen what the Russo brothers can do with a good story. And so, I mean, I know what James Cameron can do as well, but it really depends on, you know, what they're willing to do and how far they're willing to go, and if they're willing to stay with the source material. I mean, that's really kind of what it would go with. But
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I mean, I understand the hypotheticals, I understand all that, but I mean, at that point, you'd be like, well, you're like, sure as shit, you're not going to be a producer because you'd be giving money to the film, which you wouldn't have the money to do.
No, I mean, it'd be just creative consultant.
Well, creative consultant, I'd be like, well, fuck, you need to be a writer at that point, in case.
Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't be. I'd just be creative consultant. So, I mean, I would want to have some kind of creative control, so that if they were like, hey, we want to do this, I would want them to come to me first and be like, this is what we want to do. So it would basically have to be like, if they were going to make changes to the story, going like, hey, we want to, instead of having it, Wolf be male, we want to make Wolf a female and fuck no.
He'd be like, hell no, we're not changing nothing.
No. Instead of making Wolf Southern, we want to make him Australian. Fuck no. What the fuck? No. Just keep the story the way that it is.
Motherfucker, what the fuck's wrong with you and your goddamn head?
But that's the thing. Like, make it a good story. Like, tell me what you want to do. And that's, I think it would depend on their pitch and if they sold me.
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's depending on, who's going to make the right decision, who's going to make the right choices in this.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, hypothetical. I get
it. Some things on, mythology, history, well, Greek in particular. So in Greek mythology, there are 5 stages of man, which is iron, heroic, bronze, silver, and gold. In particular, like, we're only really talking about bronze and silver because, iron, heroic, and gold are, beyond Zeus's, reach. Because Zeus wasn't in the gold and Zeus wasn't in iron or heroic.
We're talking about more, right, the creation of man.
And I think like we are in silver. I think humanity right now is in silver. Like that's where we are.
Are you sure? Because I thought we would have been gold at that point.
No, gold is like beyond us.
Oh, so you're saying like the very, very future, like technology-wise, all that stuff.
Yeah, gold is like basically they're like almost godlike. They're like underworld. Like they're like, yeah.
Okay, because I only say this because I mean, I really didn't even know where I guess right now humanity modern day would be at that
silver.
point.
Yeah, we're Silver Age. Bronze Age was like right before us. They were kind of like more primitive and like kind of like less off. So when basically like what had happened was each of the ages, Zeus would create humanity from scratch. And, for a time they would worship the gods without fail. And then at a certain point they would begin to kind of falter. The gods would punish them. And then they would worship other gods, other things, other people. And then when humanity flat out would disobey them and forget them altogether, Zeus and the gods would completely destroy them and reset. That's basically what happened in the Bronze Age. And then Zeus basically, would recreate humanity all over again, make them slightly better, like make them a little bit more self-sufficient, make them like a little bit, like give them a little bit more technology, make them a little bit like, able to garden, able to do this, able to, do stuff on their own. Like, he would make them a little bit better, but still have reliance on the gods for certain things. Right. But each of these ages, man still turned and faltered at a certain point, and they still relied on other things. They still relied on, other gods. They found other gods to worship, and they found other things to do. And eventually, this is when they decided, hey, you guys are not going to bother us. We're not going to bother you.
Well, and so this is where I'm not gonna lie. So like a lot of the polytheistic, religions in that sense. So like being again Greek mythology, things like that. It's very again. I mean, you worship one god, the other one's gonna fucking come right at you in 2 seconds, right? So there's no appeasing them. Like literally, you could say I'm gonna worship this, that. But they all require different sacrifices or different things that they want. And so at the end of the day, you cannot really appease all the gods. There's no way, unless you're like the holiest of holy, or the heroic of heroics of everybody. There's no way of appeasing all these gods. There's literally no way because, when you're talking about Hermes, you're talking, Athena, Hera, Zeus. I mean, I can go on and on and on. But there's no way. I mean, Athena was vicious. If she wanted to come at you, she would come after you. Hera was just the same. She, and Zeus, I mean, and so on and so forth. These gods were vicious. They could ruin your fucking day in 2 seconds. So my point is
even when you were worshiping,
when you were doing it, right? So I mean, I get it. That I know in the story, we're talking about the story here, but like, it's hard. When you're looking at a polytheistic religion like this, or even like Norse or Hinduism or so on and so forth. It's hard to be like, okay, I'm going to worship all these gods. Good luck, because it's not an easy task, right?
So this is where I think when I thought of when I started having this question, okay, what if the gods created these artifacts? And I went kind of back and forth. I'm like, okay, well, am I going with artifacts?
Okay, I do remember this conversation. Yep.
Does each god have a different artifact? I'm like, okay, well, how do I control that? And I'm like, okay, well, what about if they did amulets? Every god creates their own kind of, amulet. Maybe it has like their own, a symbol, because each god did have kind of their own symbol. Zeus had the lightning bolt. Poseidon had the trident. The trident. So, each god did kind of have like a symbol per se. And they deposited them all over the earth. So maybe instead of them turning their backs on humanity, like they did, the amulets kind of serve their own selfish purpose, and the amulets kind of like get humanity to rely on them because they know how selfish humanity or man really is. And they know that they're not going to use the power of these amulets to help themselves or help humanity.
Right.
For basically the betterment of the world. They're going to use them in selfish ways.
True.
And so that's kind of where I was thinking, like, they're depositing these amulets all over the earth. Mm-hmm. Humanity is using them, and basically the earth is falling into chaos because humanity is just everybody is basically going to war using all these powers, and they quickly learned like how humanity could fall in line by using these amulets, and they would turn right back to the gods, asking them for help. And they would reclaim the amulets, and they would help out humanity. Mm-hmm. And once again, man were worshiping the gods, and everything was happy. And then it would cycle all over again. And then eventually, it didn't. And that's kind of like where the story kind of like, they decided like, hey, we're just fucking done with this.
We're done with you. I'm done with you. Like, we're done. No, I mean, it's the truth, though. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, there's a TV show on, I want to say it's Stars. I think it was called, oh, damn it. I'm trying to remember now because I used to watch it. It was actually about the gods. It was actually about, like, I think it was called Power. I'll have to look it up. But basically, the main point of the story was like, it's this guy who's a black dude. Basically, he gets out of jail, but he meets up with Odin, and he, kind of follows him along. But he's talking about like, trying to regain the power of himself, because I guess he's part of the old gods, right? And then there's like the new gods, and so like he's trying to take back his position of being like the lead god, and it's an interesting story. I have to remember what it's called. I'll have to look it up later, but it's kind of that unique dynamic where we got this like new age of people, right? Because like, I mean, in the story, I know we'll kind of dive in a second, but like, we're taking a unique approach and saying, okay, well, we're going to get rid of the old ways, and saying like, yep, we're going to leave you behind. We're done. We're done with your bullshit. We're going to hang out and go fuck elsewhere because we don't care at this point because we're gods, and then these people, as we're going to talk about here in a minute, they find said amulets and so on and so forth. And, they now have to be like, do we want to be good or bad? Because that's really the ultimate question, because as humanity, we think to ourselves like, okay, what is the right thing to do, or what is the wrong thing to do, or what is let me rephrase that. Instead of right or wrong, what is the most justifiable thing we can do? And so this is where Matt, I think, was going, where, as humans, we're like, you have a choice. You have that right or wrong kind of moral compass. And, again, these people that you'll find out about, they have to make those decisions. Because, and we will learn later on that, yes, some people will do that, and some people, they're not so good as they think they are. But
no, they're not. They're not. So, yeah, they decide to turn their backs for good, and they never come back. Right. But because they turn their back and they never come back, they also leave the amulets behind.
Right.
So the amulets are all, they're all on Earth. They also leave Olympus empty. Like, there's no gods to replace them. There's nobody there.
You know what I mean? Hang out, basically.
So that's where kind of my book starts. And it's set in present day, and there is an unknown force. I'll call them an unknown force. Sort of like I would say, if you were to compare them to anything, they would sort of almost be like the Illuminati.
Yep.
They're called the Superium, and they work kind of behind the scenes. They are trying to take control of all of these amulets, because they are basically their destiny, and their big plan is to ascend to Olympus and become the new gods. That is their entire plan.
Right, because they believe they are the chosen ones to do so, even though
they are the chosen race that will ascend as gods to Olympus, and that's only if they can obtain all of the Greek amulets from the gods, because they believe themselves to be chosen. They can't allow any other humans to have them. So basically, anybody who is within the Superium, once they have all of the amulets, they are going to. I mean, their whole plan is basically to use them like they would be used back when they would give them, to humanity. So they would basically just run chaos all over the earth.
I mean, I guess it's interesting to look at, because you're kind of finding out about this like super secretive society of people that want to take over the world, basically, and basically, well, I wouldn't say take over the world, but yeah, again, destroy humanity, create it to their own version of it, and rule over them. But yeah, kind of doing that same thing.
But it makes you wonder too: is like, are they for real?
Well, and right, you won't.
Are they just making this shit up? Like, you know what I mean?
Because you're reading it and you're like, I don't know. Is that really going to happen? Is that really going to be the case? But
then, you also see that the amulets do have powers. So then you're like, okay, well, the amulets do have some power. So are the gods real or are they not real? Like, what is actually happening?
Well, I mean, and so this is where I'm going to say it before we go forward is like, when we always talk about, there's phenomena of things we cannot physically explain in science, right? There's things that we cannot figure out. I mean, and this is why when we talk about, mythology and things like that, I mean, people will say, I mean, for example, I mean, it's kind of related to Greek mythology, which, yeah, I would say so. So, fun little fact. So, like in Greece, or actually the island of Crete, there's a cave, believe it or not. I can't remember exactly where it is, but my dad was explaining it to me. So when he was stationed there, he was telling me that him and some of his fellow shipmates went to this particular cave. This said cave was supposedly the site, ready, where Zeus was supposed to be born, right? It was that cave where, if you remember Greek mythology, that he was born in a cave from Gaia. Kronos was trying to eat him, right? And, Gaia gave him a rock and so forth, and he believed that he was eaten. So that was that same cave, apparently, that was where he was born. So the fun fact is that if you bring any electronics, apparently, it apparently will disable it, and it will not, like your phone will not, or like, for example, a phone or whatever, right? Anything electronic, you bring it into that cave, it will literally deplete it of battery, and it's not going to work. So they brought the stupid idea of like, well, let's bring all our phones in and take photos, right? Within a matter of, I think they said 10 seconds, phones were dead. Nothing there, and the locals will explain this. They said you cannot bring anything like literally technology in there because it will deplete your battery. It won't work. And so, like, I'm just saying as a random example like that. I mean, there's just things like that where you cannot tell me. Whether I know, when people say mythology is stories that people pass on, whatever. There's things like that where you cannot explain shit like that. All I'm saying. But anyways, I know. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that you can't explain, and it's one of those things. Like with the Superium, like, are they crazy? Are they not crazy? Do they really believe what they're preaching, what they're following?
I mean, I guess for their sake, I mean, I would say that, yes, they are preaching what they're saying, and I think they do believe that there was, like, even though the stories they might think that most people would think, oh, it's fake. Well, they wouldn't think it's fake if they know that clearly there's nobody up.
I mean, obviously they clearly believe it because I mean they're going all out to make sure that these things are happening. But within the book, we have two different factions that are, they're not really part of the Superium because they're kind of like behind the scenes.
Yep.
So the two main factions, the first one is kind of the villain group here. They're the Phantom Syndicate. Not much is really known about them because they operate within the shadows, but they're a group of master thieves who basically they steal like rare and priceless art, like jewelry, other types of artifacts, and sell them to the highest bidder, usually black market, driven by money. They have their own black market auction where buyers bid anonymously for their rare finds. Each member of the syndicate has their own kind of unique skill and power. They only go by code name except for Victor and Viper. Viper has her code name, obviously, because it's Viper, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And within the book, right kind of in the beginning, they're approached by this mysterious man named Proteus and are given a proposition to find special amulets in exchange for a big payday.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of starts them off in this direction of locating these amulets.
Right, them.
The other group, the other faction, is the Liberators. And they're the hero group. And they're these ragtag group brought together for the sole purpose of protecting the amulets and ensuring they're kept out of the wrong hands. Like the syndicate group, each of them brings a different skill to the team, whether it be military training, expertise in electronics, or leadership, or research, infiltration, etc. But they're kind of just like this ragtag group brought together. So kind of getting into a lot of the characters within these groups. What I tried to do between the two factions was to kind of try to mirror image the good versus the bad, so that like each of the characters kind of like match with their skills or their abilities. So with the two factions, Danny and Victor, Danny's with the Liberators and Victor is with the Phantom Syndicate. Danny starts out light and Victor starts out dark. That's kind of like where their abilities kind of start out. Jackson and Techno. Jackson is with the Liberators. Techno is with the Syndicate. Both are experts in technology and electronics, although Techno gets an edge with his amulet when he does get his.
Right.
Maya, again, with the Liberators. Phantom is with the Syndicate. Both are infiltrators, trained to be silent, deadly up close. Phantom does get an edge with the amulet that he gets later on. Wolf and Hammer. Wolf is with the Liberators, and then Hammer is with the Syndicate. Hammer is more kind of muscle-bound, more of a tank for that group. Wolf is more of the military, soldier-ish.
No, I got what you're saying.
Yeah. But both men are fighters, have a tough and kind of gruff exterior. So I tried to really match up the personalities with each of the group. Lennox and Viper. Viper is far more ruthless, but both characters are 100% dedicated to their leader. Lennox and Merrick are brothers. They're actually twins. So, I guess that's probably why they're dedicated to each other.
You're laughing at me. I'm just watching you explain this book. So go ahead.
But Lennox does share leadership with Merrick, but Merrick has always been a much better leader, which Lennox kind of knows that already. But yeah, Nora and Phobia. Phobia is, I guess you probably could already tell. Phobia is with the Syndicate. Nora is with the Liberators. Phobia is pretty psychotic, possibly a sociopath as well. But what they have in common is they're both well educated, both do research for their teams. They provide intel and analysis. So, like I said, I did try to mirror image both of these teams so that they were very, very kind of similar. Just really good and bad. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
So diving into the Liberators, Merrick and Lennox, they are twins, and they lead the Liberators. Merrick initially has the Amulet of Janus.
Is it Janus or Janus?
Either way. I don't.
You're the author. Figured I'd ask the question.
Whatever the Greek god is. Whatever you want to pronounce it.
I was just thinking Janus, but that's just me.
Well, then it's that.
Well, then fuck myself. Anyways, yes. So Merrick, the ability to teleport via portals. He can also open portals to anywhere. And although in the book he limits it to earthly travel, the amulet can open portals into both time and space, which is very unique in its own. Because, now granted, in a fight, that's only going to get you so far unless you want to run away every time. You know what I mean?
Well, the portals. He can. I would almost kind of imagine it to being like Nightcrawler.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But even with Nightcrawler, it's like, yes, he can only. It's almost he has to see where he's going.
But I mean, if you were, yeah, I mean, obviously, if I was in this room and somebody was like, you were in a fight and you had to go to a different room. But if you were like in an open field,
oh yeah, then you'll have a field day.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But that's the thing. Like, if I was, obviously, if I was Merrick and like I could open a portal to like freaking Mars.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I could just open a portal to Mars and kick you through it and be like, hey, you're done.
See you later, bitch.
But that's the thing. Like, he could, and he could open a portal to both time and space, but in the book, he doesn't really open a portal to, either time or space. Mainly just like, opening a portal to, kind of like.
No, I understand. I mean, for me, that would be, dude, think about your just travel to work, man. I told you, but one of my favorite things and one of my favorite powers is like teleportation. Just being able to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to Japan today. Let's just go take a trip real quick and then come right back. Yeah. Think about that, man. You don't have to go on any vacations, man. Or now, let me rephrase that. You don't have to take any time off. You can just be like, all right, honey, let's go take a day trip real quick. Just saying, it's like one of the coolest things.
But then later on in the book, he does get the amulet of Hephaestus, which I did take a little bit. I mean, Hephaestus is kind of the...
well, he's like the forge. He's the forge god. But I mean, yes, I can understand. Well, he is fire. I mean, that is technically correct.
I kind of did like fire/lava, only because, you take a forge and you take, the heat of it. So, I took a little liberty. Okay, people. Sue me.
No, it's called you wanted to be a little different, a little creative. I mean, you got to check it. Yeah.
He can just manipulate fire, but he can also go into like a full fire / kind of like lava form where he has like no hard physical body.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what he does. Lennox, he does initially get the amulet of Kronos. So he can, it's not so much like, I tried to make it a little bit different where it wasn't quite like Quicksilver or it wasn't quite like the Flash. He can alter time relative to himself. Well, so like it's really like a field that's only around him. So if he was, say, in the same open field, okay?
Be careful because he might have a field day again.
He might. So in this same open field, okay, if you're saying like, in this general area of your house,
oh boy,
was this field,
okay,
and I was standing down the road, I would not experience said speed of like his speed of time,
right?
But if I was standing where you're standing, you would experience, him moving. You would be experiencing that. His moving fast.
Right. I mean, and I guess if you want to use the word Kronos, like I'm thinking like chronic or like not chronic.
Chronic.
Yeah, chronic. Get him. Chronic. Oh, here we go again. Dr. Dre, baby. No, I'm thinking more like because I'm pretty sure like in Greek, I think it's like chrono or it's like there's a different word for it, but it means time. Like I'm pretty sure that's where you got that from. So yeah, like being able to kind of manipulate in the sense the time and space around.
He doesn't run fast. He can just alter the time, so it appears like he's moving fast. Yeah. He alters the time.
Well, it also kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you remember watching. Well, you might have been a little too old for this one. Maybe we'll see. It depends on how you are. Like Dexter's Laboratory.
I do remember the show.
Do you remember that one episode that he has a device on his head and he's trying to like take a shower?
Every damn episode.
Well, there's this one episode I remember. He has this device on his head and he's like running. He's trying to run through like time and he's like, okay, I only have like 5 minutes to get ready, but everything is so damn slow that like the shower, like all you see is these little like droplets of water just like kind of like dripping down, but it's not quick enough for him because he's going too fast. So it's kind of that same idea where yes, he's going. He himself will feel like he's going fast, but really everything else is kind of slowing down around him. And so that's where we're kind of getting at, where it's not quite like the Flash. It's not quite like Quicksilver, but like, I guess if you look at both of them,
people don't necessarily feel, you wouldn't feel the effect of time slowing or speeding up, whatever he's doing.
We would be in normal time. The problem is him would be going
Right.
so fast that you wouldn't even realize what was going on.
right.
But yes.
He then does get the amulet of, and I had to create my own.
Yes, I know you had to create your own.
And I did name the god Hubris. So basically, Hubris is a symbiotic kind of parasitic god.
So not quite like Venom.
Not quite like Venom, but similar.
Okay.
In a way. Basically, what ends up happening is he does have the ability to shoot out like the, kind of the tendril kind of appendages.
Okay.
To kind of use it like as weapons. He can absorb like kind of a life essence. He does have like the, strength, jumping, speed, endurance. But the problem with the amulet is the longer you use it, the more it consumes its user.
So I guess kind of like.
And eventually it'll take full control. Right. So it is like a symbiotic. It's not like full symbiotic, but it's more of a parasitic.
Okay.
Where it will fully consume, and the more you use the power, the less of the person you are.
Right. Okay.
So he does use it for a little bit in the book, and then I don't know if it's in this book or if it's in the second one.
Yeah, the second one that you haven't technically, created yet.
Well, it is done content-wise, but I'm in review process now.
Oh, gotcha.
But
anyways,
he does end up going back to Kronos. Just
okay. All right, fair enough.
A future thing.
Okay.
But I think that's in the beginning of the second book. But don't quote me on that. Mimic does not have an amulet in this, but for her character, she also goes by the nickname or the code name Mimic. Mm-hmm. She has served alongside Wolf for many years. Trained sniper, also in infiltration and spy techniques. When she isn't sniping, she would prefer to be sneaking around in disguise or using her knives, fighting up close. That's kind of like what her thing is. Wolf, expert in guns, knives, killing, basically a redneck badass. That's pretty much what he is. He's kind of like the shoot first, ask later type of personality.
You mean shoot first, ask questions later kind of
Yes.
person? Yes.
Merrick and Maya's more humane approach, he's not that. He's the opposite of that. He's more of like, I want to kick that door down and shoot. Where, Merrick and Maya are more of like, no. We need to find out what's behind the door before we kick the door in and just shoot. And he's not, he's like, no. I'm going in there and I'm shooting. He's like, and then I'll find out what's in there.
He's like, I don't give a fuck what's going on in the back of that corner over there.
And then, even though like he's served, in the military with Maya, he's always wanted a relationship with her.
Hold on, ready? Oh yeah, I'll be doing that.
But he does take the responsibility with the team and his mission seriously. So, he never wants to risk like some kind of a fleeting moment of passion.
Hey, you got to have some romance in there, whether it's, whether the ones you want it to be or whatever.
And I think, it's just, that's part of like just his personality. Like he takes like the mission seriously, even though like he does have some comic relief in the book.
Yeah.
The mission and what he does for the team is always first.
Well, I mean, and that's good. I mean, that's good for all intents and purposes. But I mean, at the same time, you're talking about these individuals that they're human, right? They're going to have urges, man. I mean, if he's been basically...
Oh, he tries.
I know he tries.
Oh, he tries.
Now, I know he tries. Now,
and she
denies the shit out of him. I know that.
Oh, yeah, she's a strong personality too. And she's like, no, we're not doing this.
No, but I'm just saying, like, when you start to think about this, right, as the, kind of like, telling me about it a little bit, but like...
I can't say the same thing between Maya and Danny. That's different.
Well, we're not going to get that far yet. But no, what I'm saying is like, as you know, when you start to look at these characters, you know, they're human, right? They have them, you know, the basic functions, the needs, and
these are not. These are not like military people. These are just.
Well, I mean, hold on.
Those two are.
Yes, but everyone else is just regular people.
Everybody else is just regular people. You know, Merrick and Lennox, they're regular people. You know, the next one is Jackson. He's the tech expert, drone pilot. He's one of the younger members of the team. He's definitely not a fighter. He adds the brains and intellect in terms of tech, electronics, knowledge of hacking. He's kind of more of the I guess your introverted tech expert. Nora and Danny, they're, I would say, on this team and in the book, the main characters.
Well, yes, and then you were saying that
Danny is 100% the main.
Well, yeah. But what I'm just saying, like, you know, you're screwing up my train of thought here, but no, they basically, of course, they drive, you know, what's going on and kind of like moving that forward. I mean, granted, you know, we talked about a little bit of the Phantom Syndicate, like kind of like, okay, hey, we're going to tell you about this. I mean, because granted, like you said in the beginning, like, you know, the Superium kind of reaching out, or sorry, Proteus, as we know, right, reaching out to the Phantom Syndicate, kind of like starting off that first, you know, but diving in. I mean, really, because I know you were talking about Danny and Nora being the, you know, these are the people we're going to be focusing on more. I mean, these of course they're going to be a part of this team. You know, we're going to focus on them too, but like these are going to be the people you're going to want to look at, especially Danny.
Yeah, I mean, Nora is part of the team when we first get introduced to the team. She is Danny's sister,
right? Older
sister. She does not have an amulet at the start of the book, but she does end up getting one. She gets the amulet of Aeolus, which is she gets the power over wind and air. So I guess much like an airbender in like Avatar.
Oh, I'm glad you know what that is, but yeah.
So she can like generate powerful wind gusts, tornadoes, like just.
I mean, that to me would sound pretty fucking cool, in my opinion.
It is pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, just like the ones we dealt with earlier when we were outside.
Yeah, like the ones the
50-mile-an-hour winds.
So Danny, obviously Nora's sister, he is not part of the group, but ends up becoming part of the group because he basically, you know, stalks her and follows her.
It's like a guardian stalker. No, I'm joking.
He's more concerned with like where she was going, and you know, in the book, like that he's dealing with the death of his mother. Even though Nora still lives at home, she's never there. He desperately wants to connect with her. He has no idea what she's doing when she's not home. So that's kind of like where he's kind of like, well, where the hell is she going? Like, she gets this phone call and he's like, where is she going? I got to follow her. Like, I want to make sure she's safe. And he has kind of like this, you know, he has this experience with this group.
Well, hold on. So before we go any further, like, and I know we were just talking about the mom here, but because I couldn't remember if you said this or not, but do we know where Dad is at the time?
No.
Okay, so Dad right now is completely out of the picture.
For the first book, yes.
Well, yes, for the first book, correct. But I didn't know if like Dad was ever mentioned in the beginning.
No.
Okay, so Dad was just never mentioned. We just know about her and her sister and all that fun jazz.
It'll be second part of the second book.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, I know already of who it is, but I'm not going to spoil it as much. No. But I mean, yes.
So. And, you know, when they do go on, I think one of their first missions, he does start off with the Amulet of Ether, which allows him to turn into pure light.
So basically, he'd be blinding the shit out of you.
In the form, he has no solid form. He can control how bright or dim he is. Not like, you know.
Yeah, you had to
go. Like how bright or dim lit he is. He can travel at the speed of light if he chooses to. and then he can basically spread the light of himself into an area. That's pretty much what he can do. But he does end up with the Amulet of Zeus, which gives him the ability to control, manipulate, and absorb all forms of energy. It's the only amulet capable of destroying the other amulets, because it's the Amulet of Zeus. But using too much of the power causes Zeus's consciousness to take full control.
Bum, bum, bum.
So that's where, it's really, when you have these like powers, you have to also create, okay, well, you're giving him this power that's like absorbing all forms of energy. He can also destroy the amulets. That's like God power right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's
But what is
God's status?
What is the negative? Okay, well, the negative, he loses himself because he becomes Zeus. And basically, when he becomes Zeus, he wants to murder humanity. That's basically what happens when he becomes Zeus. He cares nothing about humanity and basically just wants to annihilate everything. He doesn't care about his team,
Right.
or anything.
I mean, and that's where, when you start to look at, I mean, this is, like I said, it's a great concept, but again, of course this is where you got to remember, in, I would say, any part of life, there's going to be good or bad consequences. So whether you have good choices in the sense of like, hey, we're trying to, protect humanity, by, protecting these amulets. Okay. Well, if you end up with literally one of the most powerful, basically amulets of them all, and you're trying to use it for good, I mean, okay, great. Now, hopefully you don't use it too much because God forbid he takes over.
Yeah.
Boom, you're done. You ain't going to come back from that, kid.
No. So we'll get into the Phantom Syndicate. I mean, a lot of these we kind of talked about. So we have Victor. He's the head of the syndicate. He recruited each member for their skills. He does get the Amulet of Erebus. Basically the power of darkness and shadows. He can hide in and literally turn into darkness shadows,
Sounds like a Peter Pan move. You know what I mean? Like, you remember from back in the day, he'd like bring his shadow.
I think it's a little bit more than Peter Pan.
No, I understand. Well, you don't know what I mean by that, but yes, no, I
do know what you mean, but it's a little bit more than being somebody's shadow.
Well, no, what I'm saying is yes, you're basically manipulating just darkness. I mean, in the sense of just being anything. I mean,
but it's literally the opposite of Danny's. Like, he's becoming darkness, like no solid form. It's just darkness. But he can literally hide and sneak out of any. I mean, if you're fighting at night, you're not finding this dude.
No, you're fucked.
No, you're not finding, and probably could choke you with the darkness itself. Like
that too.
Viper, Victor's number 2. She's pretty ruthless. Been with him since the beginning. She ends up with the Amulet of Typhon, which allows her to conjure large beasts. In particular, she does, conjure serpents.
Hence the name.
Viper. Techno, expertise in technology, hacking, computer skills. This one, I had to kind of create a little bit of literary freedom with, because there isn't really a god of technology in Greek mythology because,
no reason. There was never a reason for it, but yeah.
So I chose Vulcan because he was kind of a creator. He created things, and I'm like, hey,
little Star Trek.
I think
nuance here. Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, the god was named Vulcan, but whatever.
I know, but I'm just.
So Vulcan was like, he was a Greek god. Like, he invented things. He was like a blacksmith, an inventor.
Right.
So I used that to create the amulet. So what Techno can do with it, if I had the Amulet of Vulcan, I would not be an expertise in technology, hacking, and computer skills. I might be better, I might be an expertise in like writing or sound or music.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it becomes whatever you do. Like the power you get is particular to, if you're a mechanic, you would have the power basically to just repair a car like with your mind. Like,
right. No, I mean it basically enhances the skill set that you would already bring to the table.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, that's basically what it would do. But for him, he has the expertise in technology, hacking, and computer skills already. So what he can do is control and manipulate technology. He can hack any tech around him. He does have militarized drones that can fly around him. They provide surveillance, protection, and they also do battle. But he can also use them to assassinate people. So he has these like really small drones with blades on them.
Oh,
so but he has like a huge amount of them that like kind of swarm. Like
kind of reminds me of like No Way Home. You know what I'm talking about? Where you're seeing Mysterio like with his drones.
Yeah,
kind of that same idea.
It's sort of similar to that. Yeah, so they can kind of fly around and they have blades on them, so they can
I mean, no, sorry, not with No Way Home. It was Far From Home. Sorry.
Yes.
Anyways, go.
I knew what you were talking about. Phobia. She was the newer member of the syndicate, but she was a trained psychologist, which is weird because she's also
Psychotic.
She's also psychotic, and
so she's a psychologist who's a psychotic. Yeah, that sounds like a great time. Right there.
But she also studies fear and its effect on the brain.
Hence the name.
Why she's called Phobia.
Oh,
she's the researcher. Well-educated member of the team. She gets the amulet of Phoebus,
which is the...
she can sense people's fears. She can whisper or speak their fear or phobia to them and make it real. The ability to enhance a person's sense of fear or dread and can physically manifest a person's fear or phobia.
Ready? Here's your fear. Clean shaven. What?
But that's basically what she can do when she gets the amulet. Phantom, trained in infiltration, ghost recon, that type of thing. He has the ability to move silently and can get in just about anywhere. That's his skill within the syndicate. That basically helps him to get into, hard to get into places. He gets the amulet of Melano. Which basically makes him a ghost.
Pretty sure Melano is not a real...
No, it is.
In Greek?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
It might not be a main god, but it's one of them.
All right, I have no idea, but okay.
But it basically makes him like a legit ghost.
Huh.
He can turn himself invisible, he can move unseen, and he has the ability to possess others.
Oh, lovely.
Isn't it, though?
Isn't it nice? So I could just go possess you and be like, hey, how you doing? I'm going to be Matt for the day.
You're going to love the next one because Hammer, like we said already, he's the muscle, the tank of the syndicate. If you need something done, he's your man, but he gets the amulet of
Kratos.
So he has durability and strength.
Motherfucker, man, this is one guy you wouldn't want to screw with then because this is one guy. I'm going to say it, if you ever played God of War, okay? There's a reason why he's called.
And these aren't full. I mean, you're not getting the full power of Kratos, but even 20%.
I don't know. I know, but there's a reason why they call him the God Killer. Okay, he would kill gods for a living. That's what he did. So yes, my point is.
And Kratos wasn't even the strongest one. There was another one that's stronger than Kratos.
Oh no, I know, but now granted, I mean, in Greek mythology, Kratos really wasn't even that hyped as much. It really wasn't kind of the same storyline. I know they just kind of used it as kind of the name and just kind of moved forward with it. But no, I'm just saying. I mean, you still, if that's not even the strongest one on top of what you're just saying, yeah.
No, there's another one. There was another god that was more powerful. I believe this god actually almost killed Zeus. Almost killed.
Well, the question is who you're talking about.
You're going to make me open the other one, aren't you?
Hell yeah, I'm making you do that. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about this one special individual, which is, kind of an important part, but I'm just going to mention his name. Okay, so we're going to be talking about real quick Proteus. The guy you mentioned in the very beginning talking to the Phantom Syndicate.
Yes, my man Proteus.
So this guy, he's a curator within the Serperium. And the curator is a title or rank within the Superium. But also, he has the amulet of Proteus. Each curator, once given an amulet by the Superium, is the given name of the amulet of which they are given. So just keep that in mind. The amulet allows for him to shift into any living form he chooses, animal, human, or mythical. It's not limited to your imagination. Like you cannot imagine some movie creature. It has to be from legends or mythology. No one knows what he really looks like, what his true name is, or where he's actually from. He probably doesn't know he probably doesn't know either as every time he meets people, he looks different. He assumes their identity, clothes, and all. The only thing he cannot copy is memories, thoughts, knowledge, and experience and personality. Now, what I find interesting about Proteus is that, again, you're right. And I know because you mentioned him in the beginning. Well, to me, when you were writing this book, yes, he was the...
He's actually mentioned, I mean, he's mentioned throughout the story.
Well, yes. No. What I'm saying is not that. What I'm saying is that, he is that mysterious guy you don't really know about. It's kind of like, this is what it kind of reminds me of. It's kind of like, when we were watching Avengers, right? And you're like, oh, you see that purple guy. He's just kind of hanging out there. And he, gives you that. It was right at the end of the Avengers movie. And he gives you that weird, smile. And he's not quite there yet. And you're like, wait a minute, who the fuck is that guy? Is that supposed to be Thanos? You're not thinking about it, right? It's kind of that same feeling because you don't really know who he is. You're kind of like, you're like, I don't really know who this guy's going to be, but we're gonna try to figure out who maybe this guy is or whatever. You can try all you want, but I mean, once you read the books, then you might be able to understand. But he is the main villain in the story, as you will learn that he does play both factions and pits them against each other so that he could obtain as many amulets as possible and do as little work as possible. And just after, and just come after and clean up the stragglers after he could return to the Superium with a mission success. I mean, it's smart. I mean, which way you ever look at it, I mean, that's pretty smart in my opinion. You'd be like, hey, fuck it. I don't want to do any of this shit. I want to make these fucking two fight each other. Fuck it. Why not? Why not make it worth your while at that point? And that's the beauty of it. You're just like, you know what? This guy's an asshole. Well, I'm gonna, fuck him up. Let's do it, man. I mean, it's smart. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's literally the orchestrator, of the entire thing, and you're just like, hey, man, I got all these amulets, man. Don't worry about it. We're just gonna let these two fight it out. We're just gonna sit back. We're gonna wait.
And that's the thing. I mean, in the entire, he's in the entire book, and basically, he has created the Liberators. Like he put them together.
Yep.
And made them the group that they were. He found, he basically with the Syndicate, he sent them on a mission. Like he said, hey, I want this thing, I want this thing. And they went and stole it. And then in the book, they're basically waiting for him to buy it. Like they go to this parking lot and they're waiting for him to buy this thing. And he basically, when he shows up, like they don't even know who they're waiting for. And he shows up there as like some old guy, and they think he's he's somebody else. And basically they're like, who the fuck are you? You're not
the guy we met.
And he's like revealing like the mission that I sent you on was the one, I sent you on it to retrieve this. It was a test to see if you were worthy of my mission for you to retrieve these amulets.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they're like, fuck no. Like, we're not doing anything for you. Like, we're in this for money. If you're not paying us, we're out. Like, we're done. And there's a whole scene where he turns into a Hydra and everything. Like, it gets cool. And basically they're like, oh, fuck, we'll do whatever you want, man.
we're done now. We're fuck this shit.
And that's basically that. And like, but there's, he's in this whole entire book where like, he's meeting with this, with the Liberators, and he looks like somebody else. And then he'll go back and meet with the Syndicate, and he looks like somebody else. And it's kind of like, well, how many years has he gone and done this with other groups? Like he I'm sure doesn't know who he really is at this point.
I mean, why would you? You're a giant shapeshifter. I mean, you're not going to ever know what your true identity looks like.
So it's, he's pitting these like two factions against each other, which, right at the end of the book, obviously they do go up against each other.
Right.
And, obviously the liberators like don't want to fight them.
Right.
And they're forced to. And it kind of comes down to that point of like, they end up, winning at the end. And then Proteus is like, no, you're not winning. I'm going to mop the floor with you now. And you have like the big boss battle at the end of the book. And, it kind of like comes to that final conclusion at the end of that book. And
where I got to tell you what that end of that book is, because that's, you would need to.
No, you need to kind of read. You need to read it for yourself.
The only reason why I haven't read the book, but I know what happens is because
there's a lot of narrative I'm not sharing.
No, you're right.
But yeah, I mean it's one of those things like he is the main villain of the story, and we can see it as readers, but like in the story, like they have no idea until they finally figure it out, and they're like, this guy is playing us.
Yep.
Like, we need to go on the offensive and like really dig in here.
Yep.
And, really figure it out. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much like, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's like once they kind of figure it out and they kind of go after it. It's like the Syndicate's like really not playing fair either. I mean, they go right after them. So it's one of those things like, I think the book really does well. Is it a perfect written book? Probably not. I definitely think the second book is written like there's a lot more going on in that second book.
So you're saying you're not biased right now, is what you're saying?
I think between the first and the second, it tells a complete story. Obviously, you have to start somewhere.
Well, again, I mean, you're talking about this is your first book you've ever written and published, for God's sakes. I mean, you do have to start somewhere, and you know what? Who cares? Like at the end of the day.
Like I said, I mean, I think with the first book, you have to start somewhere. But I mean, the second book, which I'm hoping, like I said, I'm still in the review process. So, I'm still going through and like going through the dialogue pieces, making sure like how people are saying things are right.
Yep.
I still have to go through and, make sure the grammar is all right for each of the chapters and then putting them all together.
Is that what I need to do is I really need to read this book. And then what I need to do is help you with the second book. And then what I need to do after that is help you with the third book.
Actually, the second and third book is now just going to be a second book. Because when I was writing, the second book isn't quite long enough. So I decided to include the second and the third book into one book. So now it's just going to be 1 and 2.
So the question is, what is the title of the second book? Or do we not need to know that right now?
I know I can tell you. Hold on.
Well, no. If you don't have this is just a working title, right? I mean, or is that the final title?
No, it's a final title.
Okay, what's the final title?
I'll tell you in a minute. Shadows of War.
So book 1, Power of the Gods. Book 2, Shadows of War.
So yeah, it'll be Shadows of War, and then when in book 2, it'll be, there will be a part 1 and a part 2, which is essentially book 2 and book 3.
Yeah.
But it's part 1, part 2, which part 1 is your Shadows of Olympus, and then part 2 is the War for Olympus.
Oh.
So
the question to you is this. Do you think, not saying you would, and I know I'm just jumping the gun here. Do you ever think you'd make a third book on this, or would you maybe say continue the story maybe with some of the similar characters in this, but do a spin-off of a different, let's say, mythology?
I don't know. I think, for once I finish the second and I get it published,
He's like, I'm taking a fucking break from writing books.
I might take a break from the Amulet Keepers and I might move to something else. Because I do have another idea.
Oh. Okay.
This one is more of a horror sci-fi.
Of course it is. I knew you were going to talk about a horror at some point. I figured.
But yeah. I mean, I do have a couple ideas. But
okay, I know.
I do have a couple ideas.
Good.
I don't know if I want to stay in. Like I said, I do have the horror sci-fi idea, but I do have, I do have a couple nonfiction ideas.
Oh.
So, okay. I mean, I have been working on, for a long time now. I just haven't gone back to editing it or like looking at it, but I have been working on an addiction book actually.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Look at you.
But I haven't really looked at it in a long time. But hey, anyways,
I know we're babbling on here, but yes, no, we're, hopefully, you can get your copy, whether it's on Amazon. Hell, if you want to, like I said, do the audiobook, you go on, the Google and the Google. I wish it was on Google, but it ain't on Google. If you go on Apple Books and you can go on there, you can always check it out on audio style. So, you can let us know because, like I said, maybe I'll just buy it and maybe I'll just listen to it. And I'd love to hear all the differences. Maybe that'll help me read this book. Who knows? No, I mean, like I said, I've known Matt a long time, almost 10 years now, and I'm proud of what he's doing. He's doing a lot now. He just told me, you know what he told me earlier? He's like, motherfucker, you need to start doing your own shit. And I said, well, I don't know what my fucking shit is, man. You fucking write books and you're creating music. What else is fucking there? He's like, well, social media. I'm like, well, it's kind of hard to do social media. At least with these two things, you don't have to put yourself out there. You literally created it. And you don't have to put your face out there. You just wrote a book. You created music.
There is I do have a link. I can actually put it into the link tree. I'm surprised I didn't already.
How dare you?
You can actually get there from our website because there is an Amulet Keepers.
Yes, I do remember that there was a page for it. Yes,
there is a page on our website, and if you want, that visual representation and quick bios on each of the characters, a lot of the main characters, there is. AI rendered photos of the characters, so you can go there. But I believe the links are there too. But I will add at some point. I will add. There's a link that's called Books to Read, and it literally has every single link to where my book is being sold. And so it's like Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I mean, there's like sites for freaking apps in Italy. Like, it's weird, like weird sites. Like,
it's okay. What I want to do, like I told Matt one day, is if I ever was visiting Italy, I want to go see if it's in that random bookstore. And then,
well, I mean, a lot of bookstores in like France and like some of the like European bookstores, like they're not here.
Well, yeah, no, I know.
So some of those stores are different.
Anyways, no, I mean we've been enjoying ourselves this week, but yes, hopefully next time, actually, what are we talking about next time, man? We didn't really talk about that.
I don't know yet.
Oh, look at that. We're actually, that's right. No, it's okay. No, Matt and I are going to be doing some creative thinking about our next few episodes coming to be. Because, yes, unfortunately, we're not all perfect and have our organizational skills together. So, yes, don't worry. Next time, we'll make sure it's going to be just as fun as this time. So, until next time.